Hello, my name's Ellen Meeropol, and I'm going to talk to you about my new novel, Her Sister's Tattoo. Her Sister's Tattoo is the story of political activism and its consequences in 3 generations of a family. Rosa and Esther grow up in a working class, secular Jewish family in Detroit. They grow up attending union rallies and civil rights protests and become anti-war and feminist activists. The novel begins at an anti-Vietnam War demonstration in 1968. The sisters injure a cop, are arrested, are charged with felonies, and face impossible choices. Esther accepts a plea bargain so she can stay out of prison and care for her infant daughter, Molly, and must testify at Rosa's trial. Rosa is pregnant but doesn't know it yet. The choices the sisters make rip their family apart, and very different legacies are handed down to their daughters. Rosa's daughter, Emma, is proud of the family history. Esther's daughter, Molly, knows nothing about it. When they're 12, Molly and Esther meet at summer camp, the same camp where their 4 parents attended as children and teenagers, a camp that bears a striking resemblance to one we know and love. I'm going to read a condensed scene from camp, narrated by Esther's daughter, Molly. She's the one who does not know the family history. After lights out, Emma and I pretended to sleep. Finally, the whispers and giggles around us faded into the moth-wing breathing of a dozen sleeping campers. We slipped out of the bunk, and I followed Emma past the organic vegetable gardens to a squat building, tacked like an afterthought behind the camp office. "This is the archive," Emma said, creaking open the heavy door and fumbling along the wall for the light switch. 3 walls were crowded with floor-to-ceiling shelves. The 4th was covered with camp photos, labeled with dates and clumsy calligraphy and grouped by decades. A panoramic photo represented each year, the fingernail-sized faces mostly shaded by baseball caps or squinting against the sun. I stepped forward to examine the smaller bunk groupings, labeled Tenor Boys Joe Hill or CIT Girls Rosa Parks. "My mom's best friend used to bring me here. She was the camp nurse, and I came here with her when I was little." Emma looked right at me then. "My mom was in prison." "Prison? That's how come I know the court system," Emma said. "They railroaded my mom and sent her to prison for 9 years." "What did she do?" I asked. "I'll show you." Emma pulled an oversized book off the shelf, releasing a fine shower of dust. We perched on stools, carefully turning the stiff pages spread-eagled on the pine table. A musty smell rose from the paper. Emma read a headline aloud in a mock-pompous television news voice. "DA considers attempted murder charge in anti-war assault case." "Assault?" I asked. "That's what my mom did," Emma said. "There was this humongous anti-war demonstration about Vietnam. My mom went with her sister. These mounted police were beating up protesters, and Mom threw apples at them." "How can apples hurt anyone?" I asked. "They were hard apples, little green ones. One hit a horse, and it freaked, and a cop fell off. That's assault. He was paralyzed, and there was a trial." Emma leaned her face close to mine. "Mom tried to talk about the war being wrong, but the judge wouldn't let her. So she went underground." "Huh?" "Into hiding," Emma explained. "A few months later I was born, and she hid me with her. But then she was arrested again, and they framed her for a bombing she didn't do, and she went to prison." "If she didn't do anything," I asked, "why did the jury convict her?" "The FBI lied to scare other people so they wouldn't protest. They went after my mom because she was Jewish and socialist." "Socialist?" I thought. Socialists were frowning young men in black and white photos in my social studies book. They wore heavy, dark clothes and wanted everyone to be poor. What happened to you? I asked. My dad took care of me. When I grow up, I want to be a people's lawyer, just like him. Emma's voice was soft, but I could hear the pride. We visited my mom in prison almost every week, and I spent summers here. Emma smiled. My parents came to camp as kids. They met here. That's so neat, I said. My parents met here too. Cool. Emma turned back to the album. Look, here's the first story. Sisters arrested for injury to officer. I studied the large black and white photograph under the headline. 2 young women with pale oval faces and frizzy hair were caught with their arms flung out, fingers extended, as if they had just thrown something. Emma's finger pointed to the woman on the left. That's my mom, Rosa. But I stared at the other one, the woman on the right, whose eyes were closed. The air in the room went all stale and dead and so heavy my lungs couldn't suck it in. What's wrong? Emma asked. I don't understand, I pointed. That looks like my mom. Emma stared at me. That's impossible. That's Esther Levin, my mom's sister, who finked on my mom and sent her to prison. Esther Levin Green. I pictured the gold letters on the diploma that hung on the wall over my mom's desk in the alcove off the kitchen at home. A smoldering started deep inside my throat and spread like fiery sunburn over my neck and face. Know-it-all Emma was dead wrong about this. There was no way that my mother could have a sister and never visit her or talk on the phone. That would be like me never seeing Oliver again. He was totally annoying, and I hated that he finished my sentences. But when he was little, he loved to cuddle and twirl my curls around his finger as he sucked his thumb. He was my brother. My mother doesn't have a sister, I said. I would know. She would have told me. Emma looked at me, then at the photograph, then back at me, like she was trying to see if I resembled my mother, or maybe if I was somehow responsible. What did you mean, I asked, that Esther finked on her sister? Esther testified against my mom and sent her to prison. Emma spoke like they were cuss words, so she could avoid prison to take care of her baby. She jabbed her finger in my face. That must be you, she said. I didn't understand. In Emma's world, people were socialists and anarchists. They attacked policemen and went to prison. In my world, people were regular and their kids hung out with their friends and had fun. How could we be in the same family? A moth bumped its frantic dance against the window. Emma wouldn't stop talking. My grandparents, well, I guess our grandparents, had to sell their store to pay the fines. I covered my ears with my hands so I wouldn't have to hear her lies. My grandmother collected porcelain cocker spaniels. We visited her every year at Passover. She had promised to leave me her china doggies in her will. Would she leave half to Emma? How come my grandmother never mentioned Emma or Rosa? No, I crossed my arms and frowned at Emma. I don't believe any of this. So Emma repeated the whole story again, about cops beating people and throwing apples and the horse rearing up and the cop falling down, except this time she told it with 2 sisters, Rosa and Esther. This time it was worse because I knew what was coming, and her sentences punched holes in my lungs, up one side and down the other. Finally, she finished, and the room was quiet except for the dull lament of a lone cricket. I tried to picture my mother standing on a dusty city street, throwing things at a policeman. No way, I whispered when I had breath again. Emma touched the 2 faces on the photograph, first Rosa, then Esther. Your mom got off easy. She never spent a day in prison. I pushed off the stool and walked to the wall of photographs, turning away from Emma. I'm going back to the bunk. I don't want to hear anymore. I love my mom. I love mine too, Emma said softly. She joined me at the wall and pointed to the 1958 group photo, where 4 teenagers stood slightly apart from the crowd. The 2 boys leaned against the white oak tree at the edge of the field, their tanned arms around 2 frizzy-haired girls. They're all together here, Rosa and Alan, Jake and Esther. Jake and Esther, my parents. I turned away from the photo and looked down at the burning in my right fist. I rubbed the row of curved marks my fingernails had gouged in the soft part of my palm. I squeezed my lips together thin and tight and pointed at her face like she did to me before. I don't believe a word of this, I said. You made this up.